Thank you. Which of these am I supposed to be using? There's an extra one.
I wasn't sure if you had enough. Do you need more?
Well, I only have 2 hands, but if we bring over a mic stand, I can probably manage 3. Make sure the whole world hears. Good morning, everybody. It's always such a great honor whenever Pastor Rick asks me to fill in for him. Now, have you ever had a conversation that didn't go the way you expected it to go? A number of years ago, while I was in seminary, I would sometimes take on work as an extra on movie or TV sets. It wasn't really very glamorous. You just basically showed up and they would tell you to stand somewhere for a few hours and you would eat a little free food and you go home at the end of the day. But it was a fun experience and got to meet a lot of people, and I was trying at this point to really intentionally go out and have gospel conversations with people. So I show up on set one day and they stick me in a hallway with a guy, and I figure, you know what? This is perfect. There's nothing for us to do. We can't go anywhere. It's just me and him and God. I was expecting to get some good gospel conversations in. Well, we did end up talking about God, but it became pretty clear pretty quickly to me that this guy's heart was not open. As we had conversation, went back and forth, and it ended up going places I had no way of ever expecting it to go. Specifically, I learned that he believed that the government had secret teleportation technology that it was hiding from us. And then he got kicked off set because he almost got in a fight with one of the actors. That conversation did not go at all the way I had planned. Job had a conversation he was not expecting. In the beginning of the book of Job, he loses everything. He loses his children, his wealth, his health, and his standing in the community. Things are so dismal, his own wife tells him to just curse God and die. His friends hear about what's happened and have gathered to comfort him. I'm sure they all expected the conversation to go a certain way. Instead, they ended up having a philosophical and theological argument about pain, the nature of God, and whether bad things happen to good people. Why do bad things happen to good people? We're tackling the easy questions this morning, y'all. I'm sure we've all asked ourselves this at some point. If God is perfect and all-powerful, why do we live in an imperfect world? Job is the answer. It presents 3 worldviews, 3 explanations, but thankfully it doesn't leave us wondering at the end which one's correct. Looking at the first argument, this is the argument from Job's 3 friends, Eliphaz, Bildad, and Zophar. Lots of kids get Bible names, but for some reason, no one goes for Bildad these days. Job's 3 friends have the opinion that if you're good, you're going to have health, wealth, and prosperity. Their answer to why do bad things happen to good people is the answer that they don't. Good things happen to good people. Bad things happen to bad people. So, Job, if bad things are happening to you, there's only one answer. You are actually a bad man. God's promised he will bless the righteous and punish the wicked. If a person is suffering, it's because they deserve it. This is the view we find the Pharisees holding in the New Testament. Even the disciples believe this. They ask, when they see the blind man, who sinned, this man or his parents, that he was born blind? Not only did they believe that suffering equaled wickedness, but they also believed that prosperity equaled good. Therefore, if a person was wealthy, he must be right with God. Even today, we have thoughts like this. You may have noticed that the moment someone successful or wealthy or famous mentions that they may or may not believe in God, suddenly we hold them up as an icon. This is a person we should listen to about Christ. This is a person who should write devotionals. This is a person who we should have as speakers. We don't stop to interrogate whether or not their fame or success actually means that they have a strong relationship with God. Let's look at the argument that the friends give, starting with Job 4, 7 through 9. Eliphaz tells him, "Remember now, who ever perished being innocent? Or where were the upright destroyed? According to what I have seen, those who plow wrongdoing and those who sow trouble harvest it. By the breath of God they perish, and by the blast of his anger they come to an end." Bildad goes on to say in Job 8, 3 through 4, "Does God pervert justice? Or does the Almighty pervert what is right? If your sons sinned against him, then he turned them over to the power of their wrongdoing." To be honest, I'm surprised Job didn't punch Bildad just right there. You know, your sons who all died, they probably deserved it. Zophar tells Job that everything will get better if he just chooses righteousness and rejects wickedness in Job 11, 15 through 18. Then indeed, you could lift up your face without moral blemish, and you would be firmly established and not fear, for you would forget your trouble. Like waters that have passed by, you would remember it. Your life would be brighter than noonday. Darkness would be like the morning. Then you would trust because there is hope, and you would look around and rest securely. With friends like these, who needs enemies? I'm sure we've all met someone with this viewpoint at one point or another. My parents have some good friends who are missionaries. Years ago, the wife was diagnosed with cancer. My mom brought this to her Sunday school as a prayer request. A woman in the class told my mother that the reason for this woman's sickness had to be because of her lack of faith. As you can imagine, this destroyed my mother's friendship with this woman because she knew the woman's faith. She had seen it. This woman had dedicated her life to serving God. I had another friend who was single, as many people are, and was told by an older man that the reason she was single must be because there was something wrong with her spiritual walk. Clearly, marriage is a sign that you are perfectly right with God. I'm sure you've all, even if you didn't have exactly this experience, you've seen some form of it. The reason something is wrong in your life isn't because the world is broken, isn't because people do evil things. The only reason something could be wrong in your life is because you just don't have enough faith, because you just aren't right. The moment you get that one thing that's right, then everything will be perfect. But that also implies that there are a bunch of perfect people walking around right now. That everyone you know who's got a good job and is healthy and has general prosperity, well, they must be right with God. I'm sure there's immediately someone who's popped into your head as well at this point of time as an example against this. It's not surprising that Job rejects this. His friends insist over and over the only reason he's suffering is because some kind of iniquity, but he rejects it. And the thing is, this isn't just Job saying this. The first couple of chapters in the book of Job make sure to tell us that Job is a righteous man. He fears the Lord. He makes the right sacrifices. He actually makes extra sacrifices to make sure that he hasn't forgotten something, that his children haven't accidentally sinned without him knowing about it. He is a devout man, and yet he is suffering. Yet he has lost everything. Job knows something is wrong. And the thing is, Job is right about this. Something is wrong with the world. Statement of the year. C.S. Lewis called this the problem of pain. In his book of that name, Lewis explained the struggles that he went under while he was the struggles he underwent during his own time as an atheist. Specifically, he says, if God were good, he would wish to make his creatures perfectly happy. And if God were almighty, he would be able to do what he wished. But the creatures are not happy. Therefore, God lacks goodness or power or both. Something similar was said by the actor and prominent atheist Stephen Fry. He was asked what he would say if he ever came face to face with a Christian God. He said, "How dare you? How dare you create a world to which there is such misery that is not our fault? It's not right. It's utterly, utterly evil. Why should I respect a capricious, mean-minded, stupid God who creates a world that is so full of injustice and pain?" That's what I would say. It's an easy worldview to understand. When we look at a world with birth defects, cancer, children killed in battlefields, crime, abuse, I could go on and on. In his distress, Job cries out in confusion and anger, questioning why such pain and bitterness must exist. He says, "Why is light given to one burdened with grief, and life to the bitter of soul? Those who long for death, but there is none, and dig for it more than hidden treasures." He goes on to express doubt that God is listening or even cares about his distress. "If I called and he answered me, I could not believe that he was listening to my voice. For he bruises me with the storm and multiplies my wounds without cause." Furthermore, to Job, it appears that God does not reward the righteous while the wicked thrive. "I am guiltless. I do not take notice of myself. I reject my life. It is all one. Therefore I say, he destroys the guiltless and the wicked. If the whip kills suddenly, he mocks the despair of the innocent. The earth is handed over to the wicked. He covers the face of its judges. If it is not he, then who is it? Why do the wicked still live, grow old, and also become very powerful. Yet they say to God, "Go away from us. We do not even desire the knowledge of your ways. Who is the Almighty that we should serve him? And what would we gain if we plead with him?" We've all seen examples of the wicked who've prospered. We know what it takes for someone to be extremely wealthy. I mean, it's a saying, good men don't become successful. Good men don't succeed in politics. Good men don't become leaders of industry. A lot of times it seems like the bad guys always win. It may be that you are in a place like Job is right now. I know I have been in that place before myself, where it seems like you're at the bottom of a pit. You cry out to God. Are you listening? Why is this happening to me? I've done what you asked. I've tried to follow. Why am I going through this pain? Where are your blessings? Thankfully, this isn't the final word and the final argument in this story. This is when God enters the argument. I wish God would step in and end all of my arguments. It would make life a lot easier. However, that said, he doesn't come and offer any easy answers. When I started writing this sermon, I realized very quickly that it was going to be a lot harder than I thought. I had my outline already, and then I just kind of wrote things, and I just kept trying and trying and trying. And I eventually realized I was trying to give an easy, succinct answer. A lot of times in the Bible, God has laid things out very easy and very straightforward to explain and understand. Unfortunately, there's no easy answer to the problem of pain. And God doesn't try to give one here. There's nothing that you can easily slap on a bumper sticker or cross-stitch on a pillow. Instead, let's talk about kids. I've been working with kids since I was the age of 12. I volunteered to help with VBS, and I've worked with all ages. I've worked in daycare, I've babysat, I've taught school. And one of the hardest things about working with kids is that their brains aren't developed yet, and they just don't understand that a lot of the time you're trying to help them. They don't understand that you're not trying to be cruel when you tell them they can't have ice cream before dinner. That you don't hate them whenever you take them to the doctor. That bedtimes are, in fact, important. There are a lot of things that seem cruel and unusual punishment to a child. I'm sure you or a sibling at one point told your parents something along the lines of, "I hate you. You don't understand me." Maybe you felt like your parents were just doing something to be mean. Now, hopefully, when you get older, you realize why your parents chose to do that. But as a kid, there are certain things that are impossible for you to understand. All you can ask the toddler to do is to trust that you love them, is to trust that you understand better than them. This is more or less what God tells Job. In Isaiah 55, 8-9, God tells us, "For my thoughts are not your thoughts, nor are your ways my ways, declare the Lord. For as the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways, and my thoughts than your thoughts. When you consider what it means to be all-knowing, when you consider what it means to have eternity in your hand, if I'm trying to fix my car, there are a few things I might be able to do, but at some point I have to take it to a mechanic because I don't fully understand the workings of a car. And hopefully, whenever I do that, I don't stand over the mechanic and say, "That's not how I would do it." If I need brain surgery, well, hopefully I won't be telling the brain surgeon what to do. I trust that he knows what to do. I trust that the plumber knows how to do plumbing. I trust that the electrician won't start a house fire. I trust that these people who have studied and worked at their craft know better than I do. This is just within the realm of human understanding. What God is telling Job here is that his level of understanding is as different to ours as a toddler's is to their parents, as mine is to an electrician, to that God's ways, even if they don't make sense to us, they're not supposed to, because his ways are higher than ours. Let's look in Job at the explanation that we're given here. This starts with Elihu, a younger man, beginning this argument, saying, "Behold, let me respond to you. You are not right in this, for God is greater than mankind. Why do you complain to him that he doesn't give you an account of all his doings?" That moment, it's like a toddler trying to ask his mother, "What have you been doing tonight? How have you been spending your time?" Do you think this is in accordance with justice? Do you say, "My righteousness is more than God's"? For you say, "What advantage will it be to you? What benefit will I have more than if I had sinned?" I will answer you, and your friends with you. Look at the heavens and see, and look at the clouds. They are higher than you. At this point, God enters the conversation. Then the Lord answered Job from the whirlwind and said, "Who is this who darkens the divine plan by words without knowledge? Now tighten your belt on your waist like a man, and I shall ask you, and you inform me. Where were you when I laid the foundation of the earth? Tell me if you have understanding. Who set its measurements, since you know? Or who stretched the measuring line over it? On what were its bases sunk, and who laid its cornerstone? When the morning stars sang together, and all the sons of God shouted for joy. Have you ever in your life commanded the morning and made the dawn know its place? Have you ever entered the springs of the sea and walked in the depths of the ocean? Have the gates of death been revealed to you? And have you seen the gates of deep darkness? Have you understood the expanse of the earth? Tell me if you know all this. Then the Lord said to Job, "Will the fault finder contend with the Almighty? Let him who rebukes God give an answer." Then Job answered the Lord and said, "Behold, I am insignificant. What can I say to you? I put my hand on my mouth. I know that you can do all things, and that no plan is impossible for you. Who is this who conceals advice without knowledge? Therefore I have declared that which I did not understand. things too wonderful for me, which I did not know. Please listen, and I will speak. I will ask you, and you instruct me. I have heard you by the hearing of the ear, but now my eyes see you. Therefore, I retract, and I repent, sitting on dust and ashes. This is what is known as the doctrine of supremacy. It requires a great deal of humility to accept. To accept the doctrine of supremacy means that we have to accept that we serve a God who is greater than us, knows better than we do. If we look at a God who is truly infinite, all-knowing, and all-powerful, we have to look at ourselves in comparison. Even with the totality of human knowledge, there is so much we still don't know and understand. We don't really understand how magnets work. We don't agree why gravity works. We know it works, but we still can't explain it. We haven't visited another solar system. We still are plumbing the depths of the brain. If even humanity has so many questions left as a whole, how can we expect as individuals to know better than God? We're like little children before him. I wish I could give you an easy answer for a problem of pain. I wish that there was a formula I could plug in so that you never had to suffer again. But the truth of it is, there are things beyond our comprehending sometimes. So what does this mean for us? If we accept that this is God's answer, the first thing we have to accept is that bad things do happen to good people. The best person you know is going to suffer. Just because you're going through a hard time doesn't mean God is reaching out to punish you. If you need examples, the Bible is full of them. We saw Joseph sold by his brothers, Daniel thrown in the lion's den, David pursued by Saul. I could go on and on. We need to understand that pain does not equal sin. Just because you are in suffering, just because something's going wrong in your life, does not mean that experiencing pain itself is sinful. We also need to understand with this that God isn't uncaring. When Jesus went to raise Lazarus from the dead and he saw the grief of his sisters, Jesus wept. He knew he was about to raise Lazarus from the dead, but he didn't ignore the fact that his sisters were still in pain. Bad things will happen to good people. Weep with those who weep. Mourn with those who mourn. We also need to accept God's supremacy in our lives. This is the hard part. I like to make plans. I am a person who only generally feels comfortable if I have plans set out for myself on how life is going to go. And God has not paid attention to my plans. Very little about my life has gone the way I planned it to. And that is something I have had to accept. We have to let ourselves let go of things. We need to give God supremacy, admit God's supremacy over our jobs, our love lives, our health, our family, A lot of times, we try to wrestle control of our lives from God. There are going to be times when we don't understand what's going on. And at that point, we need to acknowledge and accept that God is beyond us and above us. And take comfort in that. Lastly, we need to hold on to faith in the midst of our pain. Job is praised outside of the book of Job. And this always confused me as a kid because Job complains a lot. I mean, I can't blame him. He has a lot to complain for, but why is Job praised even though God has to rebuke him? Well, it's because even when Job was angry and confused, he refused to curse God. He refused to give up his faith. Before God comes in to speak to him, Job makes a proclamation in chapter 19. Yet as for me, I know that my Redeemer lives, and at the last he will take his stand on the earth. Even after my skin is destroyed, yet from my flesh I will see God. I can't imagine what it's like for him in that situation to have lost everything and yet still, even in his doubt, even in his distress, he refused to lose faith in God. At the end of the story, Job actually doesn't get any answers. Sometimes on earth we get answers to our suffering. We see the plan. We see why God did something, but sometimes we don't ever understand. Sometimes God's plan isn't revealed for thousands of years. There are things, answers we'll only get whenever we're in heaven. But that doesn't mean we should give up faith. In the book of James, the writer points to Job as an example to the church he's writing to. He tells them, "As you know, we count as blessed those who have persevered. You have heard of Job's perseverance and have seen what the Lord finally brought about. The Lord is full of compassion and mercy." I wish I could tell you an easy answer. But when it comes to a broken world, there's nothing easy to say. But what we can do is accept God's supremacy in our lives. We can weep with those who weep, and we need to hold on with faith, trusting in a God who has a perfect plan and who knows and is working towards good. Will you pray with me now? Heavenly Father, I don't know where everyone's heart is today. I don't know what everyone's life situation is right now. I don't know whether they're in times of blessing and prosperity or in times of struggle. I ask that you would sustain us through times of heartache, that we would persevere, and that we would know that our Redeemer lives. Amen.